Have you ever looked back over the last year and realized that you were quite busy? You put out a lot of fires, checked off some boxes, hit some KPIs, got thousands of things done, but you didn't really, you didn't actually grow, as a leader, a professional, or even as a spouse. You just got older and busier. Well, society tells us that there's that growth just kind of happens automatically. Well, as that myth of accidental growth, it tells us that as we get older, as we age and we have tenure, we have experience, that we automatically grow and improve. But that's not true. See, experience alone, it's not even a teacher, let alone a good teacher. As John Maxwell says, it's evaluated experience. That's the teacher. See, this myth of accidental growth, it just leaves us trapped in the drift. So today, in this episode, we're going to dive into the growth switch and why you need to flip it. Are you leading your life? Or are you just accepting it by reacting to all the things that come your way? See, every day, a silent enemy quietly steals away the purpose and the energy from values-driven people. Here, we call it the drift. It leaves you feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. The solution isn't more efficiency or a new time management hack. No, it requires self-leadership. Because the truth is, the hardest person you will have to lead is the one in the mirror. Well, welcome to Lead Your Life. I'm your host, Nick Mazey. Here, we focus on the 1% shifts that you can make to lock in your daily choices into deep alignment with your core values and true purpose. Stop drifting, my friend. Live your values and start leading your life. Let's dive in. Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode 98 of Lead Your Life. I am glad that you're here and joining in. And today we're going to be talking about the growth switch, flipping the growth switch, because the only way that you're going to be able to improve tomorrow is by growing intentionally today. And growth, it's not a singular event, but it's a deliberate choice that you can make to grow and improve. And we're going to dive into it, but you're going to grow and improve in the areas that are most important to you, align with your values, so that you can ultimately just live that life that you want to live, leading your life with intentionality, working toward that vision that you have and that impact that you want. But before we really get into a ton of it, a quick little recap. The first few episodes, we already started talking about these 5 switches to lead your life. And the first one was, the alignment switch. That was episode 96, just 2 episodes ago. And that was, all about, getting crystal clear on your core values. Those values that are personal to you, that are most important, and getting clear and writing down your top 5 values. Once again, I'm saying writing them down. There's power in writing, not just typing it out on the keyboard, but actually either pen or pad. I use a remarkable, but it's still a way where I'm physically moving my hand, and so that I can, write these things down, and it connects with you more. Anywho, getting clear on your core values, and then beginning to create a vision for your life. Because that's you're going to be able to align your actions and your growth and the impact with what is truly most important to you and that you're working towards. So that's all about the alignment switch. Last episode, 97, was about the focus switch. Prioritizing your priorities, really being able to not just look forward to the future, but make sure at the same time while you're looking toward the future and building it, that you're honoring your values in the present. If you missed either of those episodes, go back and check them out. That's why I create a podcast, so that at any point in time, you can go back and listen to previous episodes. And as always, you can go to nickmazey.com. I have you can listen to the episodes right on the website. And I got show notes for all of them. So you can just actually go in there. There's a little search bar. You can click on the search bar and type in something you want to find. Hey, it might be an old episode from when it was the Claim Your Day podcast. Look, all it was a name change, because I think Lead Your Life is more aligned with what we talk about here. But the material and the purpose of it is all in line. So go in there, go to nickmazey.com. You can search for anything, as well as you can look up the Life Leaders community. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So personal growth, the personal growth switch that you're going to flip, so that way you can make sure that your tomorrows are better, so that you are growing intentionally to live that life you want to live and lead it well. So today we're kind of unpacking 3 non-negotiable pillars for your intentional personal growth. These 3 pillars, just to go ahead and spill the beans a little bit, the 3 pillars are awareness, environment, and capacity. So it's kind of 3 areas. There's a ton of stuff. There's so much stuff. So obviously we're not going to do a full comprehensive training on personal growth in one short podcast episode. But these are the 3 areas where just about everything that can go into personal growth can hit in these areas. So we're going to look at these 3 major pillars. And then also at the end, I'm going to give you just some key pointers, reminders, things you probably already know, but while you're going on your personal growth journey, to make sure you don't forget about them or sacrifice them, because it won't turn out well if you do. So the first pillar number 1, is all about awareness. And as John Maxwell says, you have to know yourself in order to grow yourself. I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you decided that, hey, I'm going to grow and improve, and I'm going to pick any area, and I'm just going to grow and improve and be the best that I can in that area. But it was an area that wasn't important to you, that was just a demand for your job that you actually kind of didn't like at all. Or maybe it was an area of weakness. And, another thing that we learned from John Maxwell is that if you only focus on your weaknesses, then you're never going to be able to reach your true full potential. I mean, think about the whole Strength Finders movement. It's all about looking at the areas that you're already good at, those natural strengths that you have, and capitalize on those to the greatest degree possible. So we're going to go down a personal growth journey. If we're going to flip that switch so that our future can be better than today, then we got to start off by knowing ourselves really well. And knowing what we're good at, knowing our strengths, definitely knowing our values. See, this awareness, it also includes your values and the vision that you have for your life. Now, have you taken the time, first of all, to identify your values? You're going to hear me talk a ton about it, so you might as well make sure you knock it out. To identify your values, but also to identify your strengths. What are the things that you're good at? What are the things that you're interested in, that you have a passion for? And see where some of those overlaps are. Now, a key part, too, about getting into this self-awareness, it's not a bunch of woo-woo stuff, if you will, but we all are different. We all have strengths, weaknesses, different values, interests, and passions. And so with that, when we really get crystal clear on that, it's going to help you to be intentional with what you do. All right? So while you're looking at what you're good at, what you're not so good at, in all those things. And you can answer most of these questions for yourself. But here's a key one. Here's a key one that you're not going to be able to answer for yourself unless you've already partnered with other people, got other people's input, and did something outside of yourself in order to learn about it. And it is your blind spots. See, if we're not careful, our blind spots will be a trap for our growth and our impact, our influence, the effectiveness, everything that we're able to do to any kind of quality or high level will be impacted by our blind spots if we're not careful or not intentional. And this one hit me. This one hit me hard. This was a handful of years ago, and I was a supervisor at this agency for these offices, and it was just a ton of work. A lot of direct reports and just rocking and rolling, right? Well, I was so focused on just doing my job to the greatest, the greatest degree possible that I could, and just really trying to excel. I missed this thing. It was huge for leadership, and I don't even want to share it because it was just it was a failure on my part. And what it was is I ended up finding out, it was a number of months, maybe 6 months, 7 months into that position, that I completely was not approachable by some people. Now, I guess I was being direct, or I don't know. I wasn't getting a ton of negative feedback, from anybody, but I did push a little bit to get some more feedback because I did want to improve. And then come to find out that it was somebody was finally spoke up to me, and it told me that they just felt like I was not approachable. And that's when I realized I needed to make some major shifts in how I was leading. And that was a blind spot of mine. A blind spot of mine was the degree of which I was approachable, because like if I need to talk to somebody, whether if I'm, a supervisor or a subordinate, I just go talk to them. That's a little bit more in my nature. Well, that's not in somebody's nature, then I was not coming across in that way. I know this is not a supervisory or specific work leadership podcast, But it was a real blind spot of mine for how I was able to positively impact the individuals in the office, and well, how I wanted to lead myself in that group. And it took stepping outside of myself and being willing to accept that input from others to be able to see that blind spot. So I want to encourage you, when you're working on some of this awareness for your own growth switch that you're going to flip to be able to be intentional with your growth, seek other people's input. You know, and as you're doing this, remember that your growth must be anchored in your values, and what's most important to you, and not somebody else's definition of success. If it's all about other people's definition of success, and you're not gonna have that wherewithal to stick it out and to really be able to make the progress that you want. So as you're looking to grow and develop, make sure that growth is anchored in your values. Everything we talk about here is going back to that compass of your values and that alignment switch that you've flipped. So what can you do with this, developing this awareness so that you can know yourself and grow yourself? Well, here's a simple action steps for this pillar. Be writing down your top 3 strengths, and then your top 3 blind spots or weaknesses. And this is one you will need some help. Now, your weaknesses, you might know your weaknesses, but to call out and find and really highlight your blind spots, well, they're your blind spots. You can't see them, so you need someone else's input, as well as writing down your top 5 core values. And you can do that in a few minutes. That's a simple little awareness audit to see where you're at yourself. As always, or I should say as always, but as I was just mentioning, ask for help for this. A trusted colleague, a spouse, somebody that can be really candid with you. And when they are, when you say, hey, what's one area that I'm getting in my own way? You ask them that question. Sit with that answer. Don't get defensive. You asked for it, and if it's painful, then it's probably meaning that it's going to be the ticket to your progress too. Because pain and discomfort, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. You got to work through that discomfort in order to have that growth. Like, the growth does not happen in your comfort zone, so it's okay to get uncomfortable, my friend. So those are some action steps for that first pillar of leaning into the awareness so you can know yourself to grow yourself. Well, pillar number 2, it's all about environment. It's all about designing an environment or a space intentionally it's a conducive to your growth. It's going to help you to grow and improve in the areas that are most important to you. This environment is so important. It really is. See, have you ever been there in a, like, say, a work environment where the growth just was not happening, and nobody really encouraged it, the growth. See, if you're going to say that you want to grow and improve, that means that you're not there yet. And sometimes, a lot of times in different work environments, people want to put on this front like they already have it all figured out. They don't need to improve. They're just perfect in every way. Well, if you're in that kind of environment where, we'll call it, psychological safety. It's kind of a little jargony, but where you feel safe enough to speak out, to give a suggestion to the supervisor or manager that might not be in line with what they want, to have those candid conversations where you can be a little bit more vulnerable, and to talk about strengths and weaknesses or blind spots. If you're not in that environment, then people aren't going to be stepping out and really growing and improving, because you have to act like you have it all together. Look, but the trick is that you can design your own environment. This is more on the personal side. You can design an environment that doesn't depend on your just straight discipline and willpower in order to grow and improve. Okay? If it's a work environment, then I'm not going to tell you to quit your job. But if it's your personal environment, then be intentional with how you put this together so that you're not relying on your own willpower. You're designing your environment in a way that makes it easier for you to do the things that you want to do, to grow and improve, develop the habits that you want to have, to honor your values. What can you do to change your environment? Even if you can't physically change the location of your environment, what can you do to modify and design your environment so that the space is conducive to you doing the things that you want to do, so that it promotes your intentional growth. So it actually helps you to reduce the distraction and the drift What are these things that you can do? It might be related to the physical environment, or the relational, the people around you. It might be related to more of a mental, like the digital inputs and distractions that might be coming your way and occupying your thought process, and hijacking it, if you will, from a lot of digital inputs. How can you intentionally design your environment so that it's more conducive to your growth? Look, one thing for me, and it's a tough one. It sounds simple. It's kind of dumb, but it's tough. I don't want to look at my phone first thing in the morning. Okay, I want to protect that time. So what I need to do is I'm not going to rely on just willpower and discipline. Oh, my phone's next to my bed. I'm not going to touch it. Heck no. You know what I do? I make sure my phone is sitting on the kitchen table. The kitchen's right outside my bedroom. And so that's a simple little check for me, is that when I go to bed, my phone has to be on the kitchen table. It's not next to my bed. That way I don't even have the distraction of scrolling through my phone before I go to sleep. And I don't have the distraction, or I don't have to rely on the willpower to not look at my phone first thing in the morning. It's not even next to my bed. Instead, what I do, so I leave my phone in the kitchen table, but next to my bed, next to my bed, I have a little flip pad and a note card. And this goes into maybe a suggestion, a little action step that you could do later. And I'll talk about it in just 1 minute. But what works for me is I have a flip pad with a note card and a book. It's all next to my bed. That makes it a lot easier for me when I'm going to sleep to read a little bit of my book. In the morning, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to read my note card, because it's kind of the positive things that I need, and my goals and the vision for my life, and a few different little mental exercises I do in the morning. And then my flip pad, I write down the very few things that I'm going to do first thing in the morning. And what's funny is it always starts with like the exact same thing. It's a morning routine that I do. Maybe my morning routine works for you. Maybe it doesn't. That's really secondary. But what I do is every single night, I write down the very brief morning routine that I'm going to have when I first get up. And by writing it down at night, it makes it so much more likely I'll do it in the morning. Like when I wake up in the morning sometimes and I just don't want to do my morning routine, you know what I do? About 99% of the time, I do it anyways, because I know I wrote it down the night before. As silly as it sounds, it is really, really, really helpful. And what I'm doing here is I'm getting really intentional about the environment that I'm creating. All right, I didn't move houses or quit my job. But what I'm doing is I'm being intentional with the environment that I'm creating. That makes it it makes it easier for me to do what I want to do. So when I don't look at my phone right before I go to bed, and I do a little bit of reading, and I start my morning with my morning routine. Another thing I write down the night before is I write down, not after my morning routine, like the 2 or 3 items that I'm going to do first thing in the morning after the routine that are going to help me to move forward on my goals. A lot of it has to do with creating this podcast for you, my work on Substack, putting out this material on Substack, or creating the Life Leaders community that I'm doing. So my 2 to 3 priority items after my morning routine, before I actually really get going for my day, I'm going to knock out those things. And simply by putting those key things into my environment, I'm 1,000% more likely to do them. Now, one more key component that can really help you to dial in your environment is intentionally being a friction architect. All right, let's call it that. You're going to be a friction architect. So you're going to lower the friction for the things you want to do, those growth habits you want to build, and you're going to increase the friction for the distractions and the habits you want to eliminate. That's all I was doing in the example that I gave you. Is I increased the friction for getting my phone because it's further away from my bed in a different room, and I lowered the friction for reading, or I lowered the friction for reading my note card. So basically, it's the really simple things that you can do to make some things easier and some things a little bit more difficult, and it doesn't have to be massively difficult. It's just I give you the example all the time of my gym bags in my truck. All right, I already know where it is. It's in my truck right now. So, boom, the friction is lowered for that activity. That's all it is. I want to drink a glass of with a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of salt, a full glass of water in the morning. Helps me hydrate. Cool. So I do that the night before, and it's sitting on the counter for me when I get into the bathroom and get for my morning routine and getting cleaned up in the morning. That's all it is. So, what can you do to be a friction architect to intentionally either create or reduce that friction? So, your action step for the second pillar around designing your environment is what's one thing that you can do to make your environment more conducive to your growth? Whether if it's the gym bag in the truck, or maybe it's an ending the day routine to clearing out your desk at work. Maybe it's removing a social media app, leaving your phone in the kitchen, putting a book next to your bed. I don't care. You know better for you, the one that's going to make the greatest impact and make it easier for you to do what you want to do and harder for you to do what you don't want to do. So what is that one thing? I want you to think about that, this week. And do an audit. Think about this. You can identify one relationship that inspires you to grow. This that could be your environmental, designing your environment is spending a little bit more time with someone that helps you to grow, and intentionally schedule some time with that person. Look, this is all about your environment, my friend. Environment is so powerful. It's so powerful. Yes, we choose what we do, but we can either make it harder or more difficult. That's all it is. Harder or more difficult. Harder or easier. But if you're intentional with what you choose to do and how you choose to design your environment, it's going to help you to grow by leaps and bounds, my friend. You already have that desire because you're listening to this podcast. So what's your next step? What's the one thing that you'll do to intentionally design your environment? All right. So the third, that's it for the second pillar. The third pillar is all about capacity. So you've taken the time, you've got self-aware, you know your strengths and your weaknesses, what you're good at, not so good at. You identified some blind spots, so your interest, your passion, your vision and values. You dove into that, all that awareness. Awesome. And then now you're beginning to design your environment in a way that's going to help you to maximize on the things that you become aware about, especially with those values and that vision for your life. You're designing your environment to act that out, to live that out, creating the habits that are going to help you to go in that direction. Awesome. Now, the last one is capacity. Now, this is really just expanding your ability to execute and to have that impact that you want to have. Because once you're kind of aware, you know who you are, you've set up the environment to win, now your capacity is going to be your ability to handle, those challenges, to be able to do the work with excellence, and to lead yourself at a higher level. And so with this, you're going to have to, there's going to be some tension. It's like a rubber band. A rubber band is only useful when it's stretched, right? So we have to stretch ourselves in order to be able to really hit that potential that we have. And this is where I'm going to say it again. You heard me say it already once this episode, and I'll probably say it 1,000 more times before this podcast is done sometime in the far distant future. And that is, growth does not happen in your comfort zone. It's only outside your comfort zone. So how are you going to be able to step out of your comfort zone to grow and improve, to expand your ability to handle the tasks that are coming your way, and to execute what you do with excellence? Now, your area that you want to grow in for capacity is probably different than mine. That's no problem. I have things that I'm working on improving. But you know what? It's that improvement and that growth. It's uncomfortable, and we have to challenge ourselves. And this is also where we had that conversation about, with somebody that we can trust, that will be candid with us about where we're getting into our own way. And this part can really build on that. It can build from that conversation that you had. So we got to be willing to stretch ourselves, step out of that comfort zone. And at the same time, you already know I'm going to talk about the 1% shifts. Just because we're stretching ourselves doesn't mean we snap. We stretch so far that we break. We've been too far that we break. That's where the 1% shifts really are powerful, because those small steps will take you further than those large leaps. So what's the small steps you can take out of your comfort zone to stretch, grow, and improve in the areas that are most important to you? Small steps, and that you can repeat them consistently, intentionally, over time, can take you a long way. So what are those small steps, or small areas, or maybe large areas, but that you can take those small steps in? See, this capacity, it's not just about being uber efficient and getting a million things done. Instead of doing more things, think about doing the right things with higher intentionality and focus. All right. And you don't need to have the capacity to do a million different things. Where's that area that you're going to step out in and to really pursue excellence in that area? Aligned with the vision that you have for your life and your values. What's that area that's going to give you the greatest progress by being truly excellent in this one area? Think about that. It's because that's where, especially in today's world, you want to go deeper, not just wider. And you can be known for being excellent in a specific area. Sometimes in some circles, you might hear it the big domino. Like if you knock this one thing down and you knock it out the park, it's going to help you to make the greatest progress. It could be related to the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. What's that narrow focus, a bit of area that's going to help you to make the greatest gains? That's where it's time to step out of your comfort zone and make gains in that area. All right. So, capacity. How are you going to grow in this capacity? One huge way, and it helps me to narrow my focus. I mentioned it with my morning routine that I do with or what I write down the night before that I'm going to do the next morning, and that's having your big three. I love the big rule, the big three. Because we really can't focus on 94 different things all at once. And sometimes your to-do list is bigger than just 3 items. But what are the 3 most important things, the non-negotiables that you're going to have for the day? So this can help you to focus your efforts and to be able to continue to make progress and move forward. So this is a great way, and you can focus, for how you're going to make those gains and expand your capacity by identifying the 3 big things. I like the big 3 for the day, the week, the month, the year, everything like that. You can do your big 3 for anything. So is this be your simple action step for improving your capacity? Is identifying the 3 things you're going to do. Now here's another one. I really need to do like a whole series on this, because this is one that I am really, really trying to lean into a lot more, and I need to do a whole lot of work in it too. So I am, well, like almost all this stuff, I'm not proclaiming that I'm the expert on this. I will proclaim that I am continuing to learn and improve, and I will definitely continue to learn and improve. But this one is deliberate practice. Deliberately practicing the skill that you want to build, and really honing that skill and focusing in on it. Not multitasking, not half-hearted, but really diving into developing the skill that's going to help you to make the greatest gains. Look into that. Now, like this action step for the next 2 weeks. These podcast episodes come out every other week. So this could be one where you could just start to explore how you can deliberately practice the skill that's going to help you to make the greatest gains that's most important to you. All right. Look, and I told you at the beginning that I was going to give you a few things to kind of watch out for, to remember while you're going along flipping this personal growth switch. You have your awareness, your environment, your capacity. And that can take you a long way. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of podcast episodes, and there's going to be a lot more to unpack within those 3 main pillars. But as you're going down this journey, I want you to just remember that to make sure you align your growth with your values and your vision. So especially when we're talking about capacity, designing environment, and even awareness. We can step into the work world, and even at home in the community. There's going to be a lot of input, we'll call it, from other people. Some suggestions on what you should do, where you should focus, who you should be, how you should improve, all that kind of feedback and input that you're going to get from all over the place. All right. At the same time, where you're going to spend your effort for your life to intentionally lead your life, make sure it's aligned with your vision for your life and the values that you've established. That you've got to do this, because otherwise it's just going to get you off track. It's not going to be fulfilling. It's going to cause you to get frustrated. Obviously, there's going to be things you have to do that are just requirements that aren't always 100% aligned with the ideal that you would have. But if you're going to make a growth plan, if you're going to really put this in and do the long-term work to pursue excellence, to truly pursue and to try to live out your potential, make sure you're going in a way that is aligned with your values and the vision that you have for your life. Also, another key point, make it sustainable. You hear me say this on the 1% shifts. This is why I talk about the 1% shifts all the time, because they're sustainable. It's the small steps will take you farther than those large leaps. If you're trying to do a million things and you're just trying to and you just grind it out and make massive changes to your life overnight, it's harder and harder to maintain that. And that's where the willpower really just struggles, is just grinding it out. So, and the burnout doesn't just happen when you're trying to make massive changes and sustain them just because you're exhausted. It also happens when you're going in a way that's not aligned with your vision and your values. So these things will also help to prevent that burnout. So what can you do with this? Well, you can focus on the small habits that you have. You can make sure that you're protecting your health and your energy. That's it. I said, I'll do more podcasts and stuff, but this one was on personal growth, and personal growth requires getting uncomfortable, stepping out of that comfort zone, and challenging yourself. Well, I don't want to promote that you guys got to go all in on this and beat yourself to death trying to do these things, sacrificing your health and your energy. No. Do you really want for the long term, then make sure that you're protecting your health and your energy. Make sure that you're doing the 1% shifts, developing the small habits that are aligned with your values and the vision you have for your life. So with this little section, and a simple action step for you could be, looking at an energy audit. What drains your energy and what recharges you, and putting some blocks around your calendar, some boundaries that help you to protect those things you need to protect. Whether if it's your sleep window, like setting your sleep window that you're going to go to sleep or wake up. Maybe it's a simple 15 to 30 minute exercise, or a hard shutdown time at work. I'm just throwing suggestions out there, but making sure that you're protecting your energy and your health and your energy is going to allow you to continue to grow and improve, to intentionally improve in the areas that are most important to you, to be able to make your tomorrow and your future even better than it is today. All right, my friend. Well, those are the main points for this episode 98. I'm glad that you're here. I'm thrilled that you listened to it all the way. Take some action. I know I talked about a lot of different action steps in this. And some of that is because these podcast episodes, we're getting longer now that we're only doing it every other week. I want to make sure I bring the value to you. I really do want to make sure I bring the value to you with some different action steps. But you take the actions that make the most sense for you, push you a little bit. You got to step out of that comfort zone, but you don't got to do all the different things. Make sure what you're doing is sustainable. Focus on those 1% shifts that you can make. Look, the difference between where you are now, where you are today, and who you will be in the next 5 years, it comes down to the intentional choices that you make. So I want to encourage you, flip that growth switch today. Now, if you're ready to stop drifting, to build that environment for growth, for you, and to honor those values that you have, and working your life toward the vision that you have and to lead your life, then come join the Life Leaders community. It's on the school platform. You can get there by going to nickmazy.com/lifeleaders. That'll take you to the About page. Learn a little bit about it. This is where, the values-minded professionals, we're coming together to really be able to live out those values with some weekly alignment things. But I'm going to go ahead and let you know, I don't have it all built up and polished with courses and modules and everything in place. But I'm opening the doors just for people that want to be founding members, that want to work through it, that want to contribute, that want to give me feedback so that we can build this together. Because if I create it in a vacuum and then just say, hey, you come in now once it's all created and done and kind of more concrete, well, then when everything's in place, it can't be designed and molded in a way that serves you, the community, the members, the best that it possibly can. So if you're looking to become one of the founding members, go to nickmazy.com/lifeleaders. Check out the About page. See if it resonates with you. If so, I'd love to have you in there so we can collaborate, get some of your input, some of your feedback. We'll do different, like I said, weekly alignment and activities. Also, we're going to talk about the action steps from the podcast episodes. That way, we have a place where we can come together. Hey, this is what we're doing. Encourage each other, celebrate some wins, and make sure that we're all taking steps to lead our lives with clarity and purpose. So I'd love to have you in there. Once again, that's nickmazy.com/lifeleaders. See you in the community, and I can't wait to talk to you again in 2 weeks. We're going to dive into the next switch that you can flip to be able to lead your life well. All right. Thank you for listening. Take care. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode.